What's going on, everyone? About 71% of the S&P 500 closed up in the green today, and as we know, we are heading into the biggest week of the earnings season. So in this video, we're going to talk about the most important stocks, the most important events to be aware of, some of the most explosive stocks that are already moving, and towards the end of today's video, we have an over $4 million big money trade that you won't want to miss. We have a lot to talk about today, and there's a lot that's going on in the market right now between all of the earnings that are happening, the election in about a week, and everything else going on in the world right now. So stick with us all the way until the end, and besides that, Tom, let's get right to it.
Yeah, I thought today was actually going to be pretty awesome for the overall market. The QQQ and the SPY gapped up pretty well this morning, and I was like, oh, wow, are we going to start to see a nice pop and run back to the upside here? Well, guess what? No, we didn't. The SPY went absolutely flat, Mike. I know you said 71%. We're in the green on the heat map, and that's awesome. But as we know, some of the big boys like NVIDIA, AVGO, some of the tech was lacking. Tesla was in the red. So kind of mixed with the bigger players, and the SPY didn't really get that good intraday momentum going. But there were quite a few stocks that did today that we're going to get into as well. So make sure you stick around for that. But we can't forget about the earnings, Mike. Everybody's looking at the earnings for tomorrow. We got so many questions today. Hey, what's SoFi going to do? What's PayPal going to do? You know, it's pretty crazy out there with the earnings. Sometimes the moves can be pretty exponential, but I can't wait for tomorrow morning, Mike. We have some big names. One of my favorites is McDonald's. I can't wait to see what they have to say about those onions.
True that. And whether you're looking at McDonald's or SoFi or AMD or even Google tomorrow, there is a lot on the schedule. And when we have big earnings release, like we will this week, that brings upon a lot of crazy movement, as we've seen over the past couple of earnings weeks. Last week, Tesla actually had its biggest move in 11 years from its earnings report. So as we look at all these other stocks that are set to report earnings this week, there's a very real possibility of them moving in a big way. But what makes this week so special and important is that you will notice there are a lot of powerhouse companies set to report, whether it is Google, Microsoft, Meta, Amazon, Apple, or anything else. When these stocks move, they will directly impact the market as a whole as well. So for example, if we see a lot of, let's say, negativity out of this week's earnings, that will put a lot of pressure on SPY and vice versa to the upside. But yeah, I'm set for a pretty exciting week, Tom. I think it's going to be a good one.
Yeah, it really is. I'm glad you mentioned some of the ones in after hours tomorrow. I can't wait for Google. You know, they've been mentioning some of that nuclear stuff recently. I'm sure that won't be a huge thing on the earnings, but who knows? Maybe they'll mention it in the conference call or something like that. Same with Microsoft and Amazon. You know, they've all been kind of talking about that. Meta will even be fun. And, you know, Mike, if we had to pick one week out of this earnings season, I'd say this one's the biggest one, right? If we go to the heat map, it's like almost all the big squares on the map are reporting here, minus NVIDIA and Tesla.
Gotta love it. But as we look at these earnings stocks for the week, a lot of people are saying, or probably thinking, you know, okay, that's awesome that we have all these big earnings reports for the week, but how do I actually capitalize off of this? And there are multiple ways to do that. One of the most immediate and simple senses in a short-term perspective is simply taking advantage of the momentum that is in the market. When Tesla reported last week, sure, the stock moved up a lot after the stock reported earnings, but there was still so much opportunity and phenomenal movement, you know, once the market opened back up again, not only on that trading day, but even for, you know, a couple trading days after the fact. And the same could be said with almost all of these other recent earnings reports. So as we go throughout the week, keep a close eye on the stocks that are set to report, but also have already reported, because these stocks are moving in the strongest, most momentum-filled ways, which is what ends up presenting the most opportunity.
Yeah, it's going to be really fun to see, like, maybe if AMD can start to come up off of this dip and start to really blast off here in the short term. As we start to scroll out, some of these stocks have been pulling back a little bit, so some of these earnings will be pretty crucial. Like, if we start to see AMD start to gap up again, that could be a really good sign for them in the short term. And going over to the daily chart, Mike, AMD gets a lot of action. It's one of the more popular stocks out there, and I'm sure that there'll be a lot of good continuations, like you said. I can't wait to play those, but just be very careful playing the earnings before they do actually come out. It can be pretty risky, especially with options. I know it's fun, but a lot of people still gamble on them, and that's okay. But just just adhere the warnings. I hope I save somebody out there some money.
Yeah, and that's enough earnings talk for now, right? We have a lot of stocks that are already moving in a powerful, momentum-filled way. We saw tickers like GME, Oklo, which is OKLO, NIO, DJT, and so many others just ripped to the upside today, and they each had their own reasons. So I guess we'll start out with DJT. As we know, the election is getting very close, and we can see that Donald Trump's stock, DJT, moved up by over 21% today, and really all the news that was associated with this move was just Trump's recent rally in New York. Something that's very interesting that we've seen over the past couple of weeks is not only DJT, but other Trump-related names have started to move to the upside in a major way. And Tom, when we look at DJT or PHUN or anything else, like, we are seeing some serious movement. And, when we see DJT up over 20% just on the day, wait till you zoom out a little bit.
I can't believe DJT has been on this crazy run like this, especially coming off of the dip that it had. Whenever DJT started dipping, I really thought that this stock, was kind of done, right? But of course, with the election, it's been very nice, we'll say, for DJT shareholders and people who bought the dip. I know a few traders who got in pretty low, Mike, but it's pretty insane whenever you say that the stock's up 300% since the end of September. That is insane. Within 1 month, we got a 300% move out of this stock. So that is pretty crazy there, Mike. And something else with the election that I found interesting today is that it looks like Robinhood's actually introducing the election market, which I thought was interesting. We keep hearing all this stuff about, Poly Market and Kalshi and betting on the election and stuff like that. And it's just interesting that now you could say that you traded Donald Trump, or I traded Kamala on Robinhood. That blows my mind. And Robinhood's doing the new Robinhood Legend as well.
Pretty exciting. So yeah, this is going to be pretty interesting, and it's going to be nice for Robinhood users. So definitely check that out as we get closer to the election. And as we look at Robinhood stock, that thing has been ripping over the past year, and it's uptrending pretty nicely. And they're constantly innovating and adding new things, which is good to see. So we'll keep that stock on the radar as well. But we can't help but talk about some of these other hot stocks in the market right now, like ticker symbol OKLO. Over the past couple of weeks or so, there's been so much hype building in the nuclear energy industry for multiple reasons. The surge in interest in nuclear energy from big tech stocks like Google, Microsoft, Amazon, and more definitely helps out a lot. As we look at ticker symbol OKLO, this is one of the most popularly traded nuclear energy related stocks right now. It is up nearly 30% on the day, and as we zoom out on this one, the price action is just crazy. So we want to, remind everyone that this stock is, actively moving in a momentum-filled way. I know we talked about it a lot last week, but there's a lot of action going on with this one, and there should be some pretty good scalp opportunities in both directions. It's really just more about riding the trend for the day.
Yeah, OKLO is one of the most volatile stocks I've seen, Mike. It's not all the time that we look at stocks and we see an average percent rise of 4.84%. And especially recently, these nuclear stocks have really been going. I like how OKLO is breaking the $23 resistance today. I thought that was a great sign. And we even mentioned tickers like SMR a lot last week, which is up 19.5% today, breaking out above that $20 mark and starting to really run up. And one thing I wanted to point out was the volume. Look at the bottom of the screen. Just the sheer volume hitting these stocks right now is pretty mind-blowing, especially whenever they were averaging, like, let's say, before all this news hit, like 4 million, a million, something crazy like that per day. Now we're seeing volume up around 50 million. I mean, that's a big jump.
That's a huge jump. So yeah, let's definitely keep a close eye on this ticker going forward as well. Again, it's really momentum and trend based. So let's keep a close eye on that. But as we look at the market as a whole right now, we are heading into that time of the year that is normally pretty good for the market. Basically, November is actually one of the strongest months of the entire year, historically speaking, and it is the strongest month of the entire year on average for election years. So that's pretty good to see. And while this is good news, Tom, this seasonality data has been somewhat good, but also somewhat misleading this year.
Yeah, it definitely has. October, look at the election year and the blue line here, the dark blue line, I should say. This one's actually down, and I can't believe that I'm even saying that. And, this October was pretty amazing. I'm curious, though, Mike, and, correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, guys, and I'm curious what everybody else thinks, too, is I wonder if maybe the market's pricing in the election a little bit. We're starting to see the odds on, Poly Market go in one way. We're seeing the Vegas betting odds going in one way. I'm really kind of curious here, but nonetheless, I'm curious how November goes. I hope the market didn't price things in and, maybe do like a buy the rumor, sell the news type of event here with the election, but I'm really going to be watching November, Mike. It's a big month for us, and of course, after the election, there'll be a lot of the month left. The election's right there in the beginning of November, so we'll get to see some pretty good volatility, I have a feeling.
Yeah, I think November will probably end up being one of the best months of the entire year, not only because of the election. And when I say the best month, I mean like in terms of most opportunity for short-term traders. Again, not only because of the election, not only because of the very good earnings season, not only because of the interest rate decision that we have very shortly, but also just due to the current market situation that we are in. The market is in a very explosive point right now, which brings opportunities trading moves to the upside, of course, but that also brings a lot of opportunities to the downside as well. As we look at the market over the past couple of years, every time we saw a big surge to the upside, there have been a bunch of opportunities playing the down move as well. And when that down move does happen, of course, there's short-term opportunities associated with it, but that also opens up a lot of opportunities for people to buy some of the strongest stocks out there at decent prices. So I'm pretty excited for the rest of the year, and I think it's going to be a good one on multiple different senses.
Yeah, I agree, Mike. I think that we are as well. And I know that you mentioned some of the rate cuts and stuff like that. And looking at the schedule actually for this week, there's quite a bit on the radar here. Tomorrow, we have the JOLTS job openings coming out. That's pretty big on Tuesday. On Wednesday, we have the GDP growth rate. On Thursday, we even have the PCE price index and the personal income and personal spending data. That stuff is huge, guys. That goes under the radar a little bit. I don't think people really know how much the Federal Reserve looks at that PCE data there. And then we also have the non-farm payrolls and the unemployment rate Friday. So it's a pretty packed lineup, Mike, between the earnings and between all of these. It's going to be pretty nuts, but watch out at 10 a.m. Eastern tomorrow.
Sounds great. All right, so as we jump back to SPY, we are still very close to all-time highs in the grand scheme of things, but the intraday price action isn't too strong. As we look at SPY right now, what are the most important levels in key analysis to keep on our radar?
Yeah, that was really boring today for the SPY, I will say. I was definitely looking for more of a pullback here, but I'm watching 580 as a major support tomorrow, along with 581. It really consolidated really hard today around 581. It bounced off of it a couple times, but ended up dipping below it there a little bit down to that 580.50 mark. So I'm really just going to be watching this price action here tomorrow morning with the earnings. I have a feeling that the market will probably gap up or down a little bit, and I really want to see either a good move up and above 582.50, and then that solid push up towards 584 and 585. And if we do end up seeing a big pullback, I'm watching that 580 support and then at 578 below there, along with 575. But that would be a pretty steep dip, but I wouldn't put it past this market, Mike. The SPY has had its fair share of big dips and huge moves over the past week or so.
No doubt. And another thing to keep in mind is that SPY is also still making lower highs over the past couple of weeks. Ever since it hit that all-time high on October 17th, each following high is just getting weaker and weaker. And every time we do try to see like an action, like a momentum-driven move to the upside, whether it be you could say on Friday of last week or even a couple other days over the past couple of weeks, it keeps getting rejected hard in a major way, which really just shows that selling pressure is pretty strong right now. So I definitely am a little bit skeptical of the market, not necessarily in the sense where I think everything's going to come crashing and burning, but this selling pressure certainly isn't something to ignore. And I think how the big tech earnings come out will send a very important signal.
Yeah, it definitely will. And I know we keep showing the earnings calendar, but just to make sure to take a screenshot here. Tomorrow, we'll be talking about Google a lot tomorrow night. So make sure you come back for tomorrow's video as well. And whenever I'm talking about SPY price action in the short term, Mike, there's actually been a pretty good trend to the downside lately. And SPY's really just sticking under there. So as long as it keeps staying under that, like 582.50 to 584 resistance, it's going to be pretty hard to see a lot of good momentum here out of some of these stocks back to the upside, right? I know that today there was quite a bit of green out there going back to the heat map, but whenever I look at the big tech specifically in chip stocks, it wasn't really the best out there, right? We had Nvidia, AVGO down, and quite a few others, but I will say like the finance sector makes up for it, right? That's the SPY. We go over to the QQQ though, for example, it sold off a little bit more today.
Yeah, interesting observation. So good stuff there, and let's get right to some setups and predictions. A stock I'm definitely watching very closely is ACHR. We talked about this stock last week. Remember, this is the company with the robo-taxis and everything like that. There was basically a big money trade on this one with the 4-strike call options for January of 2025, and this stock is up 10% on the day. It is holding up in a very strong way, and I really like the reward to risk setup with this one in a broader sense. Right now, the stock is hovering around some recent lows, right around $3 a share. And considering the nature of this company and how volatile this stock is, and the fact that it is actively building more bullish momentum, this stock will definitely be on my bullish radar going forward. While this stock certainly has the potential to go crazy tomorrow, it's more of a setup until this big money trade expires, which again is on January 17th of 2025.
ACHR is insane. It actually closed right around that 10% mark today. That was a crazy comeback, Mike. And look at the strong negative correlation to the SPY. This one's not going to care what the SPY thinks at all. So I think that's a good thing in the short term too, right? We're talking about the SPY being boring, but there are sectors and stocks out there that move quite a bit. I'll definitely be watching this one a lot tomorrow, Mike. One that I'm watching tomorrow is actually an earnings setup. People are like, Tom, you're playing the earnings. No, I'm waiting for McDonald's to report their earnings. I might play it afterwards, but I am looking at McDonald's to the downside. I'm looking at the 5-minute chart, and whenever I'm looking at this in the short term, this looks like a bit of a dead cat bounce going on. And I really do like the solid rejection last week around that $300 mark. So I'm going to keep watching that into tomorrow. I'm assuming that they're going to talk about the E. coli stuff at their earnings conference call. And I don't know, Mike. If it doesn't hurt, I don't know how it can't hurt sales, right? So I definitely am going to be very interested in that report.
Sounds good. All right, another stock that is close on my radar is CAVA. This is Kava, and I talked about it in yesterday's video. Basically, this stock is to the point where it's overextended to the upside. It's already up so much, and it is basically showing more intraday weakening in terms of price action. The stock has heavy resistance overhead right around this $140 to like $141 mark. This stock is definitely on my bearish radar going forward. board, I really like the reward to risk setup here, where the stock right now is just below $139 a share, where a stop loss can be set right around the all-time high at 141. And then, again, that's a stop loss where the profit target can be set in a pretty aggressive way, whether it is set down to like this $134 area or even lower for like a multi-day to multi-week hold, maybe even down to like 131 or so. It presents a pretty nice reward to risk. And again, you could even push it further than that.
Yeah, I really do like the reward to risk setup on this play, Mike, and I'll definitely be watching Kava in the short term here. Hopefully we start to see a really nice rejection and move back to the downside there. With my next play, I'm looking at Palantir, and how could we look at Palantir right now without going to the weekly chart and checking the double top at the all-time high? Palantir is pretty much right around its all-time high. It technically broke above 45 today, which was a interesting sign, and I expected to see more good momentum, but we ended up not really seeing that, and it pulled right back under that $45 mark once the market opened today. So as long as we stick under that $45 mark, I'm going to keep watching this one down. And then there's a couple levels I'm watching in the short term too, like 44.40 and 44.20, which are coming up, and you can see that 44.20 is coming up on the Bookmap as a pretty good spot where there's buyers. There was a lot of sellers at this 45 mark today, but they were coming in and out of the market. You can see here on the Bookmap how there's like little red lines here. This is the heat map showing you that those orders are coming into the market, and then you can see where they get filled with those big green volume dots there. So there was a lot of action around this 45 mark, and I'm looking for a rejection back down from here.
Sounds good. Palantir is a stock that I love for the long term, and while I love it, I also have to admit that it is overbought in the short term at least. I know they have a bunch of things going for it, and that's awesome, and I'm very excited to see how well it holds against this $45 level. Like you said, it is a key area of resistance from the past. It's a psychological level, and there's a lot of sellers defending it. So we'll see what it does here, but Palantir will definitely be one worth keeping close on the radar for the week. So great stuff there, and let's jump right into today's momentum plays. And with the first one, we have DJT to the upside.
Yeah, how could we not? Up 21%. If DJT is able to break above $49, watch it to the upside. I will say, though, be careful of $50. If you want to be extra safe, make $50 break.
All right. Then with the next one, we have NIO also to the upside.
NIO was insane, as well as a lot of the EV companies today. If NIO can get above $6.05, watch it up. It's right around that $6 mark.
All right. And then with the last one, we have TDOC also to the upside.
Teladoc. I don't think we've talked about this one in a little while, but it's up 7.12% today. If they're able to break above $9.40 tomorrow, watch them to the upside.
Sounds good. So we have TDOC, NIO, and DJT on watch for potential momentum plays tomorrow. If and only if they break through the levels listed, the stronger and more consistent they move, the better the setups become. If they don't break the levels listed, then don't force the setups. Again, we are looking for strength in momentum here. The more of that, the better it is. But those are today's momentum plays, so let's jump right into today's $4.4 million big money trade. And we are looking at ticker symbol PDD. So PDD is a Chinese stock that has been doing pretty well over the past couple of years, at least relatively speaking. And today the big money bought the 115 strike call options that expire on January 15th of 2027. So these options have a lot of time to them, but this is a bold trade right here. Again, it is a $4.4 million trade. These options have time and they are already in the money. What I do like about this setup is that the big money is entering this trade at a spot where PDD has already dipped down quite a bit in the short term. We can see this thing was running with some serious momentum towards the beginning of October, as it was right around $155 a share, and now it is pulled back to the point where it's around $125. So this is a decent sized pullback, and the big money is certainly taking advantage of it. I like the reward to risk with this setup. but I cannot stress enough how important it is to give this setup the time it needs. These options have a lot of time to them. If someone hears a $4.4 million trade was placed on PDD call options and thinks that the stock has to go up tomorrow, that is the furthest thing from the truth with this setup. The big money is buying time here for a reason, so if you are considering following it, make sure to align yourself with the big money.
Yeah, I agree. I will say though, Mike, PDD setup doesn't look too bad in the short term either, with the way it's starting to come back here. But I'm definitely with you. There's a lot of time on this. If you buy this, you better be prepared to hold it for multiple years or something. But I did notice today that the China stocks were looking pretty good again. PDD, BABA, we saw some pretty decent moves back to the upside today. So hopefully we keep seeing that continue in the short term, just for short term volatility. But I do like the big money play. It would be a nice set it and forget it type of big money play for a little while, of course, maybe keep a stop loss wherever you feel comfortable, but it would be a really nice one to let play out over a long time. And whenever we look at PDD, this area that it's bouncing off of is actually pretty good on the dip. Even if it dips a little bit more and ends up bouncing at like the 110 support, I still think that the overall setup would still be there.
Absolutely. So either way, let's keep a close eye on this one going forward. This is a bold trade. It has time to it. And Chinese stocks are starting to move in ways that they haven't in quite a while. So I think it is interesting how the big money is buying heavy at this point on the pullback. So again, we will keep this stock close on the radar, but we have a very important week ahead of us. This earnings lineup is an important one. That's why we keep talking about it, and it will move the markets quite a bit. So definitely be prepared for that. We also want to give a giant shout out to today's member of the day, I am Serve in the Stocked Up trading floor. You absolutely crushed it today, and you had some phenomenal things to say as well. Huge shout out to you, Serve. Thank you so much for being a great member of the community, and we love having you in the chat. And hopefully we see many, many more screenshots like this one from you going forward. But great work today. But if you guys are into short-term trading, definitely check out the Stocked Up trading floor. We are doing a Halloween coupon code right now called Pumpkin Profit. Basically, this will give you access to everything you need as a short-term trader, whether it is our army of trading robots, our weekly live events. You can chat with Tom and myself all day long, access the big money plays on the same day that the big money takes them, among all of our other resources that we spent years and a whole lot of money building for this private community. It is the spot to be if you're into short-term trading. We just had a brand new bot get added in the high-risk scalps channel, which had quite the day today, as it had some GME call options pop up by 195%, XPEV call options pop up by 112%, IREN call options pop up by 100%, and many other great moves in both directions. So code Pumpkin Profit will get you in at the lowest price possible. It saves $100 off the yearly plan. To claim that, use the link in the comments or the description. But besides that, guys, thank you all so much for watching, and let's crush it in the market this week.